Hey there guys, welcome back to another awesome video. And today's movie review is going to be of Argylle. So Argylle, a author named Ellie Conway, or so we think, writes spy novels. And little does she know is that her world is going to turn upside down when she finds out that her spy novels, pretty sure this is based off of actual books, like these are actual books that exist. But anyways, a series of books called Argylle. And little does she know is that they're based off of actual spies and actual things going on in the world. So this movie is directed by Matthew Vaughn, the one most notably known for the Kingsman movies, all three Kingsman movies, and X-Men First Class. And you know, I was really excited from this movie. This was one of my most anticipated movies, like definitely one of my top 5 for sure. And you know, I was expecting very much this very Matthew Vaughn style. Like he has a very distinctive style. It very much has that Kingsman aesthetic, and that's what I was expecting, was that style, that feel, that energy, but also this spy thing going on in the cast. And you know what? I got what I wanted out of this and a lot more. And you know, everyone does a great job. Bryce Dallas Howard, Henry Cavill, Sam Rockwell, John Cena, Dua Lipa, Samuel Jackson, Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara, and the entire cast does a phenomenal job. And quite honestly, I think my favorite performance out of everybody, as much as I really love Henry Cavill, as much as I love him and just the hairstyle he's got going on and just him playing off as a very much like your titular spy character, I think Sam Rockwell just might be my favorite. I think I like him as this spy named Aiden Wild, and this just might be my favorite performance from Sam Rockwell because he's very charming, he's funny, he's kind of very self-deprecating, he knows his craft very well, like he takes his craft very seriously when it comes to being a very badass and kick-ass spy, but he's also not perfect at being a spy. And I think that's what's also awesome about his character, is that he's all these great things, all this stuff in a bag of chips, plus he is this imperfect but also perfect spy in a weird sense. And also I do want to add that Samuel Jackson, I just gotta say this here, and you know, this speaks a little bit of levels, is that Samuel Jackson feels like Nick Fury, more like Nick Fury in this movie than he does currently in the MCU. I'm just saying, because his character feels very much, and this is a very descriptive and very specific, but he feels very much like how Nick Fury was in Age of Ultron Nick Fury, when he was very much like a recluse, kind of isolated, but he was still kind of in the system, planning things, and still ahead of the curve, but also very kind of like wisecracking, but also knowledge giving. And I think that captures Sam Jackson really well right now in this current state of his acting. And weirdly enough, 3 things that I think that are worth mentioning for this review from this movie is, number 1, how well the pacing and how well edited this movie is. I feel like Matthew Vaughn is really sharp when it comes to his editing, whether it is the pacing, the runtime, or even just the way he shoots things and edits clips together, and especially fight sequences. He really is like a master at this, it feels like. And yes, we've seen that with Kingsman, with how sharp he is with his editing skills, but I think this is also a testament. Number 2 is, weirdly enough, at certain points in this movie, this felt like a film, which is really weird to say because not a lot of movies are like this, but this movie really kind of does feel like, not to sound cliche and probably sound like every critic out there, but this feels like one of those movies that is what you'd say, they don't make them like they used to, because the spy thriller kind of genre really isn't a big popular thing, number 1. Number 2, I think it really pays a lot of homages and it really does a lot of things to the T and really well with the spy genre and just the action sequences. Just some moments and just certain things that made me go, you don't see this often ever in a movie like this, like they don't make them like they used to, like I said. 3 is, speaking of which, kind of couldn't help but kind of notice visually and maybe also in other little notes and nuggets that this movie has 3 almost maybe intentional or unintentional references to James Bond. And of course, this would have references to James Bond movies and James Bond related things. But recently I heard in a podcast with Matthew Vaughn, an interview with Matthew Vaughn, which, by the way, shout out to Chris Stuckman, who did a podcast with Matthew Vaughn. He, in an interview, in a podcast, mentioned that he had Henry Cavill act very, like, what he told him in terms of his character was to be kind of a 1/4% Sean Connery and a 1/4% Roger Moore. So it's like almost like not he's doing impressions, but kind of like embodying body language and the mannerisms of those actors. So that's number one. Two, because you're referencing two James Bonds already. And the third one is how much gold there is in this movie. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's really cool. I like the color of gold in this movie, but I think it's very interesting because almost like very like visual storytelling in a weird way, but also like visually referencing, because Dua Lipa wears a golden dress. At one point, Bryce Dallas Howard has to wear a golden dress for things that happen, which, by the way, I'm not going to spoil the movie because there are things that happen in this film that I would say are spoilerish, and I'm not going to do a spoiler talk, so I'll just wait maybe later on to touch on things or whatever the case is, but this is not going to be any spoilers for this film. She wears a gold dress almost similar to Dua Lipa. Even a lot of the backgrounds and even the posters and a lot of scenes and sets have gold involved. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that is because there's GoldenEye, which is another James Bond movie, which is Pierce Brosnan's James Bond movie. So it's technically referencing 3 Bonds intentionally or unintentionally in a film, which I think is kind of cool. You know, I think this goes without showing that this is definitely one of Matthew Vaughn's best. I think this might be his second best or third best, because honestly, I still think Kingsman really tops the chart for me personally, because I think nothing really beats that violence, that in those action sequences. And yes, there are definitely a lot of moments and a few moments, and there's one scene specifically with Bryce Dallas Howard on ice skates trying to make this big crazy fight sequence with all these goons, and it very much feels like Matthew Vaughn's doing this sequence to be like, hey, I did the church sequence in Kingsman, but I don't think anything tops the church sequence in Kingsman. But this was still, I'd say, one of his best. The only thing I will take away from this film is a small tiny thing, and it's nothing too crazy, but a small tiny thing, which is this movie does a lot of like kind of plot twists and a lot of things that leave you on the edge of your seat. Like there's moments where it's like, hey, here's this twist, here's this turn. And I was all for it, you know? It got cheesy, it got a little over the top at times. It kind of got very much like very generic spy dialogue and spy writing and just movie writing. And you know what? It was cheesy to me, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. But just there was this one really quick brief sequence, and I know it's didn't really do too much harm to the film, but it's just this one sequence towards the end when we basically have to stop our bad guys, and this scene has to kind of happen. And I'm gonna be very vague on it, but this scene has to happen, basically Bryce Dallas Howard and Sam Rockwell, and it feels very shoehorned. It just kind of feels like half-assed, like, hey, we need another, like, basically another twist or another, like, unexpected curve, like, hey, you didn't see this coming, or you didn't see this coming. And I could have done without it. Honestly, I could have done without it. And that's pretty much it. But other than that, I am going to give Argylle, I am going to give it an A-. So Argylle, have you guys seen it? What did you think of it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please smash the like button. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I do awesome videos every day and every week. Make sure you ring that bell to do new videos every day, every week. Share the video with family and friends, all that good stuff. For more leave suggestions in the comment section. You name it, I'll look into it as best as possible. Not sure when this is going to be uploaded. Probably sometime a little later on next week, because this is early on last week, next week, whatever, this week, last week, whatever it is. All I'm saying is this was a wonderful time. My fiance and I got to see this, and it was just a really great time and a good time and a fun time, and I definitely would suggest you guys go check it out. More movie reviews, there will be top 10s slowly coming soon, because I have 2 in mind for this month and a few other things sprinkled in as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time.